Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz, your host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, ESPN decided to cook up some trades involving the Las Vegas Raiders and the 2024 NFL Draft. I'll tell you what those trades are and what I think about it. Before I get into those, today's show is presented by Panda Supps. Use code Raiders for 20% off at pandasupps.com. That link's going to be available to you all down in the comments and down in the description of the show. If you're like, Mitch, what's Panda Supps? They just launched some brand new protein, 30 grams of protein, 140 calories, pineapple. I'm telling you, it is legendary. So the Raiders draft trade ideas that you are going to see are not from me. I cannot stress that enough. They are not from me. They are from ESPN. But the reason why that I wanted to do this is because I like the article that Bill Barnwell from ESPN decided to cook up. And I also like it because there's so many different trade ideas where I don't think that the Raiders are only going to trade up for one player. I also don't think that the Raiders in this situation are only going to trade back for certain players as well. So based on the trades that the Raiders made, to me, each mean different things. And I'll tell you what all of those things are. If you don't know, Chugs and I, we're going to be live for the 2024 NFL Draft. I can't freaking wait, man. I'm just at this point, I'm excited to see what the hell this team decides to do. We will be live for every single pick. And if the Raiders trade up for Jaden, if they don't end up trading up for Jaden, no matter what, we're going to be partying. We're going to get the picks before you see them on TV. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you got those notifications turned on. The party gets started here at the show at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So here's what Bill Barnwell said basically on the idea of the article that he created and why I decided to make this show. Spring has sprung. The flowers are blooming, the birds are chirping, and given that we're a week away from the 2024 NFL Draft, it's time for my favorite column of the offseason. Yes, today it's time for my annual mock draft that consists entirely of trades. For each of the 32 picks in round one, I will give you a trade that might, emphasis on the might, make sense. So coming up here, we're going to take a deep dive into all 5 of the trades that Barnwell had the Raiders linked to because there are some starters on our team that he thinks could potentially get dealt. And the reason why that I thought that this article was interesting with all the deals that ended up happening, because this article was released on the exact same day that Adam Schefter reported that Jaden Daniels doesn't want to be a member of the Washington Commanders. So let's get this thing juicy. Here's the first trade coming in here from ESPN. The Las Vegas Raiders, they get the number 3 overall pick, also a 5th-round pick in 2025, and a 3rd-round pick in 2026. The Patriots, they get 3 first-round picks and then a 2nd-round pick in this year's draft. My initial thought of this is, I think this is a hell of a deal for the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, you're giving up 3 first-round picks, and sure, you're giving up pick 44, but, I actually think it's going to cost the Silver and Black a lot more than this to be able to move up and go get your guy in Jaden Daniels if this is the deal. But I'm telling you this right now, if Antonio Pierce calls because the Commanders end up taking Drake May because, as it's been reported, Jaden Daniels doesn't want to go to the Commanders. If this is what it takes to go up and get your guy, I can't run to the podium fast enough to get that deal going because this, to me, is a phenomenal, phenomenal deal for the Silver and Black in terms of what ESPN was thinking of why the Raiders would do this trading up to number 3. It's this. If the Patriots think one of Jaden Daniels, Drake May, or J.J. McCarthy, whichever passer makes it to number 3, is a guy that they feel confident about starting for the next 10 years, there's no trade to be had. Draft a quarterback and figure everything else out later. I will admit that I do think Jaden could be drafted by the New England Patriots. There's been a lot of connections there. But to me, the only quarterback that the Raiders are going to move up into the top 3-4, the only quarterback that I actually think that legitimately they're going to try to trade up for is Jaden Daniels. He's been their plan A for the entire offseason. This is the guy Antonio Pierce wants. Adam Schefter reported that Jaden wants to play for the Raiders, which we already knew anyway, but the fact that Schefter is starting to say it and the fact that we're a week away from the NFL Draft, a lot more of this stuff is rolling in, and I'm not going to lie, it's making me excited. So what do y'all think about this? Give me a yes, give me a no. It's going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me the answer to this question. Do you want the Raiders to trade up into the top 3 for a quarterback? Navman, I know you don't want it to happen. Here's the thing, though. I do want the Raiders to try to move up and go get their quarterback. I am a believer that they are a Jaden Daniels away from competing for a Super Bowl. If you're able to have a top 5 defense, and if you believe in defense wins championships, if you're able to get yourself a difference maker, a potential top 10 quarterback, that's how Super Bowl caliber teams are built. Because now you have that young man for the next 3-4 years on a very, very cheap contract. And if I'm Las Vegas, I'm thinking about my window for Max Crosby. I'm thinking about my window for Davante Adams. My 3-year window, because Davante's got 3 years left on his deal. Max Crosby's got 3 years left on his deal. You got Wilkins has got 4 years on his deal. If I'm the Raiders, I go, why not? I get a difference maker at quarterback that I can pay very, very cheap. Yeah, sure, I got to give up draft capital, but if I get my franchise guy and there's 3 years where he's playing at a rookie deal, that's how Super Bowls are started, and that's how dynasties are made, and that's what I want here on the Raiders Report. Let's go to the second trade idea here that ESPN decided to cook up. The Raiders trade up to get pick 8. The Falcons, they receive pick 13, pick 77, and then edge rusher Malcolm Koonce. Now, first off, I'll tell you this right now. I don't like this trade. And when Barnwell made this deal, I actually think that when he invented this deal, it was like still for the idea of the Raiders to be able to go up and trade up and potentially get a quarterback. But I'm telling you this right now, Drake May's not going to be here. Maybe J.J. McCarthy's here. Maybe Bo Nix is there. Michael Penix Jr. is probably going to be there. I don't see the Raiders doing this trade and going up and getting one of those guys. To me, there is another player that if this trade were to happen, the Raiders would have somebody else in mind. And if this did happen, I wouldn't be very, very crazy about it, but it would be more of a Telesco move. So here's what ESPN had to say. Telesco repeatedly targeted the offensive line toward the end of his tenure with the Chargers to try to protect Justin Herbert. This trade would be a move up to grab a tackle ahead of the Bears and Jets, with whomever the Raiders take slotting in at right tackle ahead of Thayer Munford. I am actually going to disagree with that take that Barnwell is throwing out there, because I don't think that it would be to be the offensive tackle that would start in front of Thayer Munford. To me, the only way that the Raiders would risk giving up Malcolm Koonce, a third-round pick, just to move up for an offensive tackle, the only tackle they're doing that for is Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. And then and Telesco loves Notre Dame prospects. I think he is the most pro-ready offensive tackle out there on the market. And I think that there's two scenarios here. Either A, the Raiders pick up the phone, they call Colton Miller, and Miller says, you know what, man, yeah, I'm okay playing right tackle. Let's have the best offensive tackle in the National Football League. The other scenario could potentially be that there is a team that wants Colton Miller in a trade, and the Raiders believe, you know what, because we had to go up and get some extra draft capital, that we're going to have to trade away Colton Miller to get even more picks for this year's draft. Both would be those situations of why that trade for the Atlanta Falcons happened. It wouldn't be to go up and get a right tackle, that I can promise you. Let's go to the third trade, and this is the one that's going to break the internet. I can already tell you. In fact, I want you to take a screenshot of this. I want you to post it on social media, Twitter, Instagram, at Mitchell Renz 365, because, again, I didn't come up with the trade. The Raiders, the Raiders get a 10 and a fourth-round pick, 111. ESPN make the trade. The Jets, they get number 13 pick, a second overall pick, 44, and a backup quarterback for Aaron Rodgers in Aidan O'Connell. I know a lot of people that watch this show think that Aidan is a starter, and you know what? He's going to get some opportunity to compete against Gardner Minshew if the Raiders don't end up trading up for a guy like Jaden Daniels. However, most NFL teams look at Aidan as a backup. I've seen the report that Sports Illustrated is throwing out there. I'll just say this. If you honestly think that an NFL executive told Sports Illustrated that Aidan O'Connell would be a first-round pick in this year's draft, then you also probably think that banana sounds like gullible if you say it very slow. So you get a first, a second, and you give up Aidan O'Connell, and this is what you end up doing. The reason why the Raiders would do this, it's for one QB. It would be Michael Penix Jr. You're not going to trade all of that for Bo Nix. I don't think that they're looking at Bo Nix. I actually don't think that they're really looking at J.J. McCarthy either. There are a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation that the Raiders do like Michael Penix Jr., and the whispers have been growing, according to Vic Tafur, that they could take him at 13. If they were legitimately concerned that the Minnesota Vikings were going to take Penix at pick 11, you jump up in front of them, you make that deal with the New York Jets, and the reason why you trade away Aidan then is because you signed Gardner Minshew to be a backup. I know I made a video last week of, hey, it's a possibility the Raiders could trade away Aidan O'Connell, but that's more just because if you go out and you get one of these guys, isn't the plan to hopefully have him to be your dude? And that means Aidan O'Connell is going to be your quarterback 3 because no matter what, Gardner Minshew is your QB2. You gave him $15 million guaranteed. I know it sucks moving on from AOC, but you've got to be able to find your difference maker at QB. It's not Aidan. Coming up, Raiders trading back in to round 1. And I actually think if the Silver and Black were to make a deal for Penix, it would be more along the routes of some of the trades that you're about to see because I think Penix is a good quarterback, and yes, I do think he's got some upside, and I think he's a better quarterback prospect than J.J. McCarthy. I think he's a better quarterback prospect than Bo Nix, and I am aware that there was a pretty steep drop-off for the Raiders after Penix because then I think they're targeting a guy like Spencer Rattler. To me, though, if Las Vegas wants to make a deal for Penix, it's going to be a little bit back later at the end of round 1. If you haven't seen this brand new protein from Panda Sups, I have a rule here, Jeremy, where I usually only drink pina coladas. And I'm not saying this tastes like a pina colada, but I only drink pina coladas on the beach. This protein gives me like I'm on vacation vibes. It is unbelievable, and it tastes great. And I've been putting it in my Ninja Creamy. I'm telling you guys, it actually might be my favorite Ninja Creamy protein now. 30 grams of protein, 2 grams of carbs, 1 gram of sugar, 1 gram of fat, and 140 calories. And what I love about it is the freeze-dried pineapple inside of it. So it's not just like a normal protein. Like, what I love about it is it's super, super sweet. And if you mix this with water, it's actually still very good. If you mix it with milk, it's legit like a phenomenal milkshake in this. You could go try it out. The other protein that I just can't get enough of, maybe it's just because it's summertime, it is the mint chocolate chip. So go to pandasups.com, use code Raiders for 20% off. I also brought in, we have the mint chocolate chip and we have the cinnamon toast crunch on top of that. And I've been giving it out here to some of the guys at Chat Sports. I'm telling you this right now. If you are trying to get healthier and you have a sweet tooth like me, I want to be able to take my shirt off, hang out at the pool with Chuck and Alex, not even think about it. I'm trying to get in healthier shape. Panda Sups, owned by a Raider fan. Go support them. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. All right, let's get into this trade idea number 4 rolling in here from ESPN. Raiders get pick number 28. The Bills receive your 2nd and your 3rd round pick. This is where I would say if you're the Raiders is what you should do if you miss out on Jaden early on. To me, you take your best player available at 13, whether that's a Terrion Arnold, a Quinyon Mitchell, a Talisi Fuaga, J.C. Latham. Go get either your starting right tackle or your top cornerback and build that way. And then you're going to have to roll the dice here a little bit. You trade back up into the back end of round 1, and you get a quarterback like Michael Penix Jr. In terms of why ESPN thought this made sense, here we go. The teams that are at the bottom of round 1 aren't going to draft the signal caller, but they could all be on the market to trade their picks for the right offer. If the Raiders go for something besides QB at number 13, this could be their move to get ahead of a team such as the Falcons and the Giants for Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. I'll also say the reason why that I think the Bills are a team that would like to do this, they traded away Stephon Diggs. This is a football team right now that probably still wants to be able to retool and get some extra draft picks. When you move on from a guy like Diggs, not that you're not trying to win a Super Bowl now because, like, let's get one thing straight. If you got Josh Allen at quarterback, you're always in your Super Bowl window. But, like, you are still trying to add a little bit more depth there on the offense, on the defense to be able to go out and compete with teams like the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a very intriguing deal from top to bottom. But what's interesting about what ESPN said there is he said either for Michael Penix Jr. or for Bo Nix. And, you know, we talk a lot about Jaden Daniels. We talk a lot about Michael Penix Jr. We've talked about Bo Nix at times as well on this show. But what I thought was interesting is I'm on board for Michael Penix Jr. over Bo Nix every single day of the week, right? Let's play a little bit of a different hypothetical because what happens if you miss out on Penix? What happens if you miss out on all these other quarterbacks? And you all know how I feel about Bo Nix. The next guy that you realistically can choose from, in my book, is Spencer Rattler. Who would you potentially trade up for? Okay? Let's say Bo and Spencer Rattler are both available. And I'm not saying in round 1. I'm saying in general because gets to that point where it's like, what do we do? Do you trade up into round 2 for Bo? Do you trade up into round 2 for Spencer Rattler? Because, it's been reported that Rattler could go in round 2 according to Jordan Schultz. It's interesting. Give me a BN for Bo Nix. Give me an SR for Spencer Rattler. I feel like if I would have asked Michael Penix Jr. or Bo, everybody would have said Penix. So because of this, I wanted to see what the answer was. In terms of what I think, again, I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I would actually rather the Raiders draft and trade up for Spencer Rattler. Even if you told me the Raiders had to trade up into the back end of round 2 to get Rattler, I would rather them do that than take Bo Nix flat out at pick 44 just because I don't think Bo has the mental toughness. I don't think Bo has the overall ability to get it done in the NFL with the Raiders. There are certain teams that Nix will have success with. The Raiders simply will not be one of them. Let's go to ESPN trade idea number 5. The Raiders, they get pick 31 from the Niners. You also get a 4th-round pick at 135 and then a 4th-round pick in 2025. The Niners get a 2nd-round pick this year and a 2nd-round pick next year. Real talk, love this trade here by the Raiders if there is a quarterback that they are targeting. Teams including the Falcons, Raiders, Saints, and Giants are in the mix to move up if they really like Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. This would be a leap forward for Vegas, which would add one of those rookies to the mix with Gardner Minshew and Aidan O'Connell. I'm saying right now, if the Raiders trade up, the name that they should be looking at is Michael Penix Jr. at this point. It's not Bo. It's not Spencer Rattler. That's it. And it does add a little bit more competition here to this room where it's Gardner, Penix, and Aidan O'Connell. I would say you could go a few different routes. You could go the route of let Aidan compete for this season, and then you give Penix the keys to the car that following season, or you just say, hey, whoever's the best quarterback in that room, whether it's Penix, whether it's Minshew, whether it's AOC, no matter where you draft them, that's the guy. No matter what, though, a lot of trades. Love what ESPN did here, and I wanted to be able to give my 2 cents on it. However, I am curious of what trade is your personal favorite. Is it trade idea number 1? I want you to spam 1 down below. If it's the second one, which, real talk, probably out of all the trades that you saw today, number 2 is my least favorite. Number 3, I do find intriguing, though, again, I don't love the idea because you're trading up to get a quarterback in Penix, which I like Penix, but at the same time, I don't really want to trade up for anybody not named Jaden Daniels. This one I do find to be good value, especially because you're able to go up and get a quarterback like Penix. And then this idea as well, I enjoy because you're only giving up 1 pick this year. Sure, you're giving up your 2025 2nd-round pick next season. But if I'm AP and Telesco, I want to be able to cook up whatever I want to be able to do this season to get off to a good start with the silver and black. If you made it this far in the video, shout out to all of y'all, and hopefully we're having a good time on Raiders Friday Happy Hour. Hopefully you also were here turning up with us on Thursday because it was one of the craziest shows I have ever done. And if you haven't watched our show on Thursday, shout out to the brand new member of Mount Raidermore, Ira Jackson. If you don't spam Ira Jackson, then you can get the hell out of here, man.